session where today we are going to learn something which is known as get query formation. Along with this, we'll also learn an alternative for each statement. Now, going back to the mini project that we had started, the last thing we did was we ran a database query and we get a list of items from the database, and we updated the stuff.php page with a list of items that we received. What we are going to need for today's session is a new file called item.php, which is available on the course web page. You have item.php, please download it and then copy and paste this page inside your htdocs project folder. So I have done that already. So I have item.php over here. We are going to work with this page. The next thing that we want to do is the main agenda is to learn two basic things, which is get query formation and the alternate for each statement. For what is get query formation? In the previous session, we discussed mainly about two methods of how we can send data from a form back to the server. We studied two basic methods, which is the get method and the post method. What is the difference between these two methods? The get method sends the data by using something called as a query string. Whereas on the other hand, the post method sends the data through the message headers. We can do through message headers as well, but one thing that we need today is to use queries, get query, and send the data to another page. So what we will be doing is we have the stuff.php page where we have a list of items. What we want to do is when the user clicks on any one of those items, it goes to the item.php page. And this item.php page will show more information about the item itself. So what we want to do is we want to send the ID of the item along with the request. So what we are essentially doing is we are creating a query, a get query, without the forms. We don't have forms here. So we are simulating sending of the data as we did with forms, but not using forms, because if you use question mark and ID equal to something, that means we are actually sending some data along with our request to the item.php page. And if you remember, whatever you put after the question mark is the query string. So here you can send more items if you put and sign and send more items, but we are interested in only sending one thing, which is the ID, which is the unique way we identify each item in our system. So here we have a list of items. We got this list in the last session where we got them from the database. And now whenever I click on this item, nothing happens now because I haven't connected it. So what we need to do today is whenever someone clicks on any of these items, it goes to the item.php page first. And along with our request to the page, it also carries some data by using the get query method without using forms. And then once the ID goes there, what we want to do essentially is we want to get more details about that item by running a query and getting the details of that item from the database and then showing it in the user interface. So let's do this step by step. So the first thing that we want to do is get the ID of the item. Now, first of all, let's say that this A tag over here is responsible for redirecting me to the new page. So here I'm in the stuff.php page where, if you remember, we created this template where each item will be shown. This is repeated for each li, and inside that we have an A tag which makes the whole product as a button. So whenever we click on that big button, we have to go to somewhere. Currently we said hash. Hash means it goes nowhere. It just stays on the same page. So we have to replace this hash with our own destination. Now currently my destination, as we agreed on, is stuff.php page. Now if I only put stuff.php page, what happens is, let me go back. So I'll refresh this page, and if we click on any item, okay, and save this page. I saved it. Oh, sorry, not stuff, sorry. It should be item.php. Okay, So I'm going to refresh this page and we click on any of the item. It goes to the item.php page is actually not complete. That's why you don't see the header and the footer. So let's fix that. Go to the item.php page, and if you remember, this is from the first session. What we need to do over here is we need to include the header and the footer. So let me go back to the top of the page, and first of all we are sending some data which is for the header, which is the dollar title. We should do this, and then I'm going to make this called, say, item. Okay, and then we have to include the header. We are using require, if I remember, because we have a CSS styles here, so we don't want to show the page without these. And then this was known as the header.php. And we did the same thing at the bottom, where we have the we are using include over here because the footer is not that important. If the file is not available, the code should still run. Okay, so let's go back to our page and refresh this again. Okay, and if I click on this, I'm going to this page, which is the item page, and inside the item page you can see that I don't have anything over here because I'm not receiving anything. I don't know which item was clicked because I'm going to item.php page. See, if you look at the URL, I'm going to item.php, but I don't know which item is being clicked. The user has to send me that information from here. So whenever I click on, say, let's say this item, I have to know that this particular item was clicked. But now currently I'm just going to item.php. If I look at back to my stuff.php page, I'm going to item. So if you remember, I just told you that if we want to do that, we want to send a get query. So I want to send id equal to some variable, because currently, if you remember in the previous sessions, we were getting this from the form itself, but now we don't have a form. We have to simulate a form. So what we are doing is we are creating a key value, which is id, and I'm going to say equal to, but the next item that I have to add is not there. So what is missing currently is I need to get from here, what I need to add over here is the ID of the item. Now if you look back to our array that we received, the associative array that we have, the problem is we don't have the ID inside the array. So the ID is the key here. So how do we get the key? We know we can get the values we can get the items inside the associative array by using the index. See, if I use a $s, each row has only name, image, and price. Now it's a two-dimensional associative array. So the first dimension is the ID over here, and the second dimension is my three items, which is name, image, and price. So how do I get the ID which is not inside the array? A simple could be, I could just change this to, say, put ID over here, which is an easier way. But let's learn something new. Suppose I don't want to do that. Suppose I don't want to get this from inside. I want to still use this from the key. So I want to get the key. So here I'm getting the values. The value is a row. Each value is a row, which is $s. And from this $s, I'm getting the image, name, and price, which are the named items inside them. So let's see how we can do this. This is the alternate for each statement. Now currently, whenever I say for each $stuff as $s, it will return each item, each row inside the $stuff array at a time. So it is only returning the value, which is the row. I also want the key. So let's look at this from our understanding point of view. I'm going to use a playground. This is a PHP playground where you can write PHP code and run, and it will show me the output over here immediately. Okay, so let's do something to understand this concept. Let's say I have an array. I have created an empty array, which is an empty array, and inside this array I have added two indexes. So I say 101, 101, and then let's say array name Muhammad, okay, and say rank, it could be anything, okay, and then I'm going to repeat the same thing again with another names just to have some list of two items inside it. I'm using the same structure. You see, I'm using the key or the IDs as the first index, and the second one, which is the rows, will have key named items, which is name is Muhammad and rank is professor. So I'm going to change this to Ahmed, and let's make them lecturer. Okay, so now I have these two items. Now when we need to get these items, the list of items, we usually use a for each statement. For each dollar, the name of the array, which is R here, as $A, which is my each row as the iteration happens. So it is not, it is, if you use in usually means that it is a key, right? It's not a key, it's supposed to be you can say that as an iteration variable, right? Which this is usually auto incremented from 0, 1, 2, 3, like a for loop. But here we are using a for each as. So what we want to do right now is we want to show, like, for example, each time $A comes, this $A is a row. It doesn't include this first value. So how can we do that? Let's see if this works. I'm not sure, but let's see if this works. If I say var dump $A over here, okay, var dump $A, and I'm going to exit this. Let's see if I can do this. So if I save and run, so you see in this var dump I was just getting A, so I'm getting name as Muhammad and rank as professor. In this result, which is a row, I'm not receiving the ID, which is the index of this, right? Which is the index of this. So how do I get that? How do I get A without actually adding it inside over here? I don't want to change my associative array. I want to do everything here. So there is an alternate way to do that. The alternate way is this. So for each $R as, whenever you say $A, you just write it at the same format like this, which is this $K and this way. Okay. So you're just writing it at the same format that we use to create an associative array, an item inside an associative array. Now key and A are all both your variables. You can use anything you like. I'm using K because it's a key, and A, which is, you can use I or row or whatever you like. It's a variable. Now what we find out that what is K and what is A. So let's replace this A with K only. Okay, and run this. Now see, you get 101. So the key of this item, the key of this row will be stored inside K for each iteration. So K, every iteration, the K will be the ID and A will be the row of all the items. So it's now we understand that if we have an associative array, we can get the key of that array from here, from the K. If we write the for each loop where $R, which is the array, as we specify the same format that we use in creating an item of an associative array. Okay, so we will do the same thing over here. So instead of saying for each stuff as $S, I'm going to use the same way, $K and this. So what is happening essentially is whenever the row is iterated, the row itself is stored in $S and the key value, which is 101, 102, is stored inside the K value. Now I have the K value. Now in each iteration inside the loop, I have the K value. Now the only thing I need to do is to send it here. So how do we send it? If you remember, whenever we want to write an PHP statement over here, what we do is we have to wrap that up inside our PHP commands. Okay, and then we say echo and we say $K. That's it. So we are receiving this 101 from here and we are sending it as the value for the key we created, which is ID, in a get query to the item.php page. Okay, so let's go back to our page. Let's refresh this page. So whenever I click on an item, it goes to this page. Now currently nothing is happening because I didn't do any changes to the page. So if you look at our query, you can see that it's saying that ID equal to 101. Where did it get 101? From the key value of each row. So if you go back to our stuff.php page, click on any other item, you can see we get 106. So 106 because the sixth item I clicked on. So this is okay for now. The first step was to get the ID of the item and then send the ID of the item. So now we successfully completed these two steps. We get the ID of the item from the associative array, which is the key of that item, and then send the ID of the item to the next page by using the get query. The third thing that we want to do is, if we go to the item.php page, what we want to do over here is to run a query, because we can now receive the item here. If you remember in the last class, if something is sent through the get query, we can use the $_get method to receive this get to whatever is sent to us through the get query. Okay, so we can receive it, like for example, we can say $ID, the one that we received, is equal to $_get, okay, and then the ID, because this is the key that I'm sending it. So this is how I receive the ID over here. Now I got the ID. What do I do with the ID? The main idea is I have to run a query. Now in the query, I will have to do the 5 steps, the 6 steps. If you remember in the stuff.php page, we listed a set of steps that we did for running a database query, which was, first of all, we create and initialize the database variables, and then we establish the connection, and then we check for errors, and then we create the query, we run the query, and we process the results. Okay, this is the processing the results. So these are the 6 steps that we have to do every time we want to run a query. Now you can see that out of these 6 steps, everything after the creation of the query until the end is unique, because every page will have its own query. But the first 3 steps of this page, these 3 steps are the same always. And you know, it includes a password, and every page should not have all this information. Okay, so what do? We want to put all this information into a separate page and just include it as we did with the header and the footer. Okay, so what do? We just go ahead and create a new file, and this file I'm going to name it as a configuration file, you know, a db config file, which includes my configuration information. It's a PHP page. Okay, I save this, and then what do is I just cut this information from this page and include my PHP. Okay, and then I paste the first 3 steps. Now if I have removed something from the stuff, what I have to do in its place is I have to do include statement, right? So I have to say include at the top over here, and then say db-config.php. So essentially the first 3 steps are happening here, which is included, and then we start from step 4. And exactly this is what we are going to do over here in our item.php page. So we are going to do the first 3 steps by just copying this information, because this information is the same: creating the connection variables, making the connection, and checking if there are any errors in the connection, which is the same. So once we did the connection, the next steps that we have to do is we need to start from step 4, which is creating the query. So what is the step 4 here? The query. And what query do I have to run? I have to run select star from stuff where. See, previously we were using, in this example, we were selecting all the items. Here I don't need to select all the items. I only need to select those items because I have the ID of the item. So I have to say select star from stuff where the ID, which is in the database, right? So what do we have? The name of the item that we have is ID, okay, in the database. So we go back and say where ID is equal to, in this case the ID would be equal to 101, which is getting from here. So it will be $ID. Okay. Now once we get select star from stuff where ID is equal to $ID. This is step number 4. for running the query. Step number 5 is actually running the query. So we'll say $result is equals to MySQL I underscore query, and I have to use $con and $query. This is step number 5, which is running the query. Now I got the result. Now the result, if you remember, in the previous session of database, we covered exhaustively that this result is actually not the actual array of the result. It's actually a pointer. So to get the actual value from this pointer, we have to run something called as a fetch statement. So you have to use MySQL I underscore fetch underscore assoc, and here you pass on the result. It will get one row at a time, right? So we used a while loop. If you remember in the stuff.php page, we used a while loop because the result return was a pointer. Now in this case, currently, we have a pointer still, but we don't have many rows because we are running it by a where statement where id is equals to id, where id is my unique key, which is my primary key. So whenever you run a query with the primary key, you get on either one row or no row at all if the item doesn't exist. So in this case, you will get only one row. So let's call this row item. So you get one row only. So you get the row and you store it inside item. So we don't need a while loop because we are not getting more than one item. We're just getting one item. If we receive more than one item, then we have to use a while loop. But in this case here, we are not receiving more than one item. We are just receiving one item. So I get the item because it's a pointer. So I resolve the pointer by using the fetch statement, and then I store this item, the values of this item, into the $item array. Once I have done that, the next step that I have to do over here is, the next step that I need to do in this case is I need to go back to everything is stored in item, right? I need to go back and see what I need to fill. I need to update the user interface because I have got the item, but it will not be shown still. If I refresh the page, you will not see anything. So I need to put the picture here, I need to put the name here, I need to put the price here of that item. So how do I do that? You can look at the places where you can fill in the location, this one, and you can put the price over here, and I can put the name, remove this and put the name over here. So how do we do that? Again, all of these are, PHP statements, right? So we say echo, and then inside the echo, I would like to use because this is a row of item, right? So how do I get it? The same way I did it before, name. Where do I get this name from? From the database. Similar to over here, see? This is the name, image, and price. I'm not storing them by myself, so I'm getting this directly from the database. So this is the key. This is the key of the item. Okay, and then the price would be something similar, just PHP echo $item. In this case, again, I will go back and put the price is in price, right? And close this, and then I have to put the echo $item. At this time, I have to put the image img, and in the alt tag, we usually put the name of the item here. Okay. So now what I did was I added the image, I added the alt, which is the name of the item. Sorry, you cannot use $name. It should be $item with name as the key, right? And then we have the price of the item, and then we have the name of the item here. So let's go back to our page and refresh this page. Now you can see that whatever item I clicked, it will get the picture of that item, the name of that item, and the price of that item. Let's go back to our stuff page and see if it works for other things. Okay, so it works now. So now these two pages are connected by using the getQuery method. We are sending the ID by using the query formation. And then once we receive this ID, we have to get it from the $_get array, which is this one. Okay, and then we have to repeat the 3 steps of running a query to the database. We did the first 3 steps here, and then we did the remaining 3 steps here. The reason why we are not using a while loop over here and we used a while loop before is because previously we expected more than one row. In this example, since we are querying it by the primary key, we will receive either one item or no item at all. Okay, and this is how it should work. Before this is the main idea of the lecture today. Now, before we sign off, I would like to show you something which is like an error handling kind of thing. Suppose the user doesn't, but accidentally clicks on item.php. No, nothing will appear over here. But we don't want to do that, right? So if the user says no, I did not know, I just clicked on item.php page. There is no item.php page because this page essentially comes from here. So there is no way someone could accidentally click on something which will take them to item.php. But suppose they remember item.php without knowing the ID of the item and they clicked on this page. So it doesn't look good to them to go to a page which doesn't have any item. Okay, so whenever we want to know if the ID, if the query string is there or not there, we have to have something over here to tell them that, okay, you clicked on the wrong place. Now, we will learn this in detail in the next few sessions. Now, what I will tell you is there is a statement, there is a function provided by PHP, and that function is called isSet. Now, the responsibility of isSet is to check whether something, so we will not do it over here, we have to do it afterwards, right? Because it doesn't make sense to receive it when it doesn't even exist there, right? So what we will do is we'll do this over here. If set of $get_id. So that means it will be a true and false. This is a boolean. It returns a boolean value whether this item over here exists or doesn't exist. So I'm just checking if this item, the ID inside the get query array, exists or doesn't exist. So if it is set or not. So if this item doesn't exist, it's not set by the method, you will be here inside. Otherwise, you can go and do whatever you like. Okay, so if it is not there, you have to do something. Okay, maybe say, nothing was passed. So in this case, we can do better, but I'm here in this case, I'm just doing this echo no item key, something like that. I just want to put this and then say exit, right? Because I don't want to continue executing the page. And then if you go back to the page, if you click on some item, oh, okay. Sorry, if it should be not is set, because I don't want to be set, right? It should be the negative one. Sorry. So let's refresh this page and let's go back to our top part of the page and remove this query. So accidentally I go on to item.php page. I click on this page. Let's see no item. You can do better with the error messages, okay, or just go take it back to the previous page. But this is how it is done. We can use the isSet method to check if something is set or not set. If it is not set, then you can handle it in a nice way. Rather than showing them an empty and blank template page, we can do something better. Okay, so that's it for today's session. We will return back to running our queries, because currently we studied only about the select query. We would like to know how to run the remaining type of queries, which is insert and update and delete. So we'll do that in the next few sessions.